Hello and welcome to What's With Healthcare podcast today. We are three nurses who have a combined 90-year history of working and observing healthcare in action. We come together for every podcast and talk about a topic related to the healthcare system from our different perspectives we've had from working and experiencing it. We're here to share this knowledge and our perspectives, and we want to hear from everyone out there who's listening in. We want you to help us to learn more and grow more and talk and share. That's why we're coming to you every week. We acknowledge and pay respects to the lands and the waterways of the traditional Aboriginal families from where we're podcasting from. So those lands are the Yugara, Turrbal and Darumbal peoples, and always was and always will be Aboriginal lands.
So in this episode, we're going to be talking about compassion fatigue. We're going to look at its definition and some of the research, what it says about it. Then we're going to talk about the signs and symptoms. So we've each experienced compassion fatigue plus or minus burnout in our careers. And so it feels different for each person. We have a unique experience of the world, but sometimes there's overlap. So we're just going to share what we've experienced. And then we might look at some solutions, but from a perspective of throwing some ideas around and inviting you all to share your experience with us and what's worked for you. And we'll talk about this in a future episode. So for now, I'm going to pass over to Sue to give us some definitions and so forth.
It's great to be talking about this topic because working in compassion fatigue coaching in aged care currently, I'm finding people just aren't aware that this thing exists and it's real. And so in my experience with looking at the literature, it's really interesting to see that the US is really quite ahead of us in this. And they actually have professional quality of life measurement tools, which actually define what is compassion satisfaction and what is compassion fatigue and burnout and secondary traumatic stress, which sort of sit under that banner of compassion fatigue. So firstly, compassion satisfaction is what we want to achieve when we go to work every day. So when we go to work, we want to feel good about our work. We want to feel that we are actually having some impact. We're benefiting people by going to work every day. And we feel positive about our colleagues and that ability to contribute to our work setting. And that's why we're going. But what happens with compassion fatigue is that it happens really slowly and it happens over time. We don't just wake up one morning and it's happened. It's happened over a long time because of COVID and its impact upon us turning up to work every day, its impact upon not having enough staff to do our job every day. It's this slow burn. And what happens is that one day we just start feeling more and more negative about our work. We don't feel like turning up because, well, it doesn't matter if it turn up, nothing's, work's just there. It's not really happening. I can't change it. It is what it is. We hit those sort of negative feelings. We're not feeling proud and confident every day when we're turning up to work. So there is two components to this compassion fatigue title. And Beth Hudnall-Stan, who is quite the bit of the leader in this professional quality of life validated tools that you can do to measure your own outcomes. And we'll put all these links up for you to go and look at these tools because they're free, they're online. We're not going to give you anything that costs you money here. So basically, she talks about these two components, burnout and secondary traumatic stress. So burnout is where we start feeling exhausted, frustrated, angry, we might get depressed, we might leave our work. And then there's secondary traumatic stress. So that's another negative feeling, fear about our work and trauma. And it's really hard as well. So, but that's enough of me giving all definitions and talking at you today. I'm not doing that anymore. What I do want to do, though, is hand over to Isabel and Celeste, because they're going to share some of their personal experiences with this and talk about how it feels and what that's like. So I'm going to hand over to them.
Thank you, Sue, for introducing the topic, and I'm really happy to share my experience. And as I've been, telling you before, guys, it's more about the secondary trauma that I feel like affected me the most. And that is because during my time, working in the front line with patients and seeing so much suffering, that started to affect me more like, instead of feeling sad for those families, I started feeling nothing. And that's when I'm going like, this is not right. Because not only, I felt like I wasn't having the feeling and the compassion for what people were going through, not only happened at work. So it was also happening in my house. Because I remember when my granddad passed away, and I loved my grandfather. He was the best. And I saw, all my family members, crying and really feeling sad. And I wasn't feeling that. And yeah, that sort of, I don't know, had a big impact because I'm going, why is it that I'm not feeling, what everybody else is feeling? And then I'm like, no, this is not right. And, slowly I sort of started thinking perhaps I need to stop because I wasn't, as I'm saying, I was so conflicted because I wasn't feeling what I was supposed to be feeling, right?
But Isabel, that's actually the emotional blunting that comes with compassion fatigue, because you basically, you should react, but you can't do it anymore. Exactly. So you were really stuck in it. It's that's a horrible feeling. How did you feel?
Yeah, so I felt, as I said, it was more like a rational thing because I wasn't really feeling anything, but I'm going, this is not correct. This is not right. There's something going on. And that's when I realized that perhaps I was seeing so much trauma that I just got used to it. And I just got, because, when I was working in the PICU, seeing, little kids die, pass away, and you focus on that instead of, focusing on all the many kids that you help and the ones that did good, right? Because I didn't know much any better, back then. But then, working in the ambulance is sort of the same thing. I saw every time we went out, it was to see, people who were seriously injured, people who were going through, nasty diseases and things like that. And just seeing so much trauma, you get used to. You get used to it, and you have to act professionally, and you have to put on, the professional. I'm the nurse. I'm the one, that I'm supposed to be helping the patient, and you sort of get used to that and stop feeling as a human being. And that is what happened to me, and that was my experience. And then I can tell you a little bit.
What was the impact of that? Like, how did that affect your, because you're a biological human. So, did that affect your chemistry? Did it affect, your wellness?
Yeah. The chemistry, well, I can't really say, I didn't get depression or anything like that. I just realized that it was the time for me to stop. And that's what I did. I changed to do something else. Still within nursing, I decided, that also led to my decision to focus on research and perhaps have an impact in society and, in nursing as well, advancing the career, doing research. So I focus on that, and that's what I did. And that's why I love nursing as well, because you can do so many things in the profession, right? You can be a clinician, you could be an administrator, you can be a researcher, etc. Right? So there are so many possibilities and avenues that you can explore. And that's what I did. And also, in terms of my wellness and the looking after myself, because I started learning about these things, and I learned about the the term of expert companionship. And that is basically working with either, it can be a friend, it can be, a nurse, a coach, healthcare professional, someone that is good at listening and is good at understanding. And it can be a peer that fully understands what you are going through.
Yeah.
And, I was lucky enough that I have a friend who was my expert companion, who was there for me to listen to what was going on and who fully understand. And the good thing about it is that she didn't give me advice or anything. She didn't tell me what to do or what I should be doing. She was there to listen to me and to ask, a few questions that made me realize, oh, perhaps I should be, thinking perhaps this way. And she tried to guide me, but very gently.
She sounds like a coach.
It sounds like a coach. Well, she's probably, she would be very good at coaching. Yes. So that was my first, one of the things that I did, it was learn. So I taught myself, I tried to learn about these things. So education was a big component. And then, the physical exercise was a way for me to regulate emotions. And having this friend helped me to disclose, have disclosure about what was going on. And now I'm, in the process of rewriting the story and helping others. So service and helping others with my story and what happened to me has been of great help for my, to keep moving forward and to feel that whatever I went through has meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Isabel, because this is what, we're doing. We're sharing our experiences to try and let people know that it's real and it's happening out there and we're feeling it. And so how long all up do you think since you sort of made that decision back in that time to go, I need to change something here because I don't like feeling blunt like this with people? So has it been a couple of years in this cycle, do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I started feeling like that and I realized, and then I took the decision to do something else that took about 5 years. So it was a long time because I wasn't ready to give up the clinical side of things. I didn't want to because I loved it. I loved the interaction with patients. I loved feeling like a superhero, I felt like I was so good at what I was doing and I really loved it. So, but I had to make the decision because I needed to look after myself as well. And, doing research and moving into that space was something that I could keep helping people and, be helping a broader audience, right? If you do it from there. So kept connected. I've been on and off, also, going back to clinical side because I love it too.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Thanks, Isabel. So my experience of compassion fatigue has been on and off at times. I haven't actually ever got to the stage of burnout, but I have witnessed it in a number of my colleagues. And I think a protective factor for me has been the fact that I've moved around different departments and different hospitals and facilities. And that gives a certain variety that lets the pressure off so that you can become the beginner again and learn. And sometimes that's very freeing when you're always once you get to an area of responsibility, there's that feeling that you have to stick at it, and that can create a lot of pressure for people. And I've heard some of my colleagues say, like, well, when's it my turn to have a break, to do something different, to do a project for 6 months? I see some of my colleagues go off and they're working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and they do that contract in some other area for 6 months, and then they come back and they're ready to get into it again. Maybe that's something we need to build into our career programs and professional development.
Yeah.
But, and it's that feeling of, like I just want to have a normal life.
Yeah.
And
but more like with your fatigue, were you frustrated? Like what happened? How did you feel?
Yeah. So when I got to actually experiencing it, it was about it's in more recent years, and I've seen the gradual deterioration of patients over the years that I've been working. And it's really come home to me in the last 6 months or so when I've been working in the emergency department, because I worked in the emergency department at the beginning of my career and in a rural facility, not rural, but more regional facility, as I am now. And, you know, it was just so different. People didn't have all the chronic diseases. They weren't on a whole lot of medications at their baseline. They weren't dealing with lots of, you know, the heart disease, the diabetes and gout and all the rest of it, as a lot of people are now. And that's just accepted. And, you know, they're on so many medications. And so there's a real pressure that's creating in the system. There's people that are having to stay in hospital. They don't really understand why there's no movement of, you know, to get to the ward if they're going to be admitted. Like, can't you make a decision about what's happening with me because I've been here for hours? And, you know, it's the complexity of every patient that's in the department takes so much longer for our practitioners to get their heads around, to be actually able to manage. And so, you know, as a nurse, you can be looking after 3 complex medical patients, and half of them are actually admitted and waiting for a medical bed, but there's nothing happening. They're not moving.
Yeah.
And so there's frustration at a lot of levels, and there's this expectancy that we have a magic wand and we can fix things, and it's just not like that. You know, these chronic diseases have evolved over years, and we're running out of quick fixes for people, and maybe we need a mindset change. So that's what I'm experiencing, and I see in my colleagues, you know, be talking in the tea room and they'll say like, I just don't feel like I used to at the end of the shift. It's like, I don't remember why I became a nurse. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I feel guilty because I'm not caring. And that poor patient, like, they can't help it. They're, you know, here in hospital and feeling crap and not able to do things for themselves. But I just don't have the time to be able to do all these things for them. And then feel guilty and frustrated that you feel that way. So
exactly. No, Celeste, thank you for sharing that, because I'm imagining that people are watching this podcast today feeling that they just aren't, they don't have empowerment to help their patients properly, because the system has got all these, you know, it's overwhelmed. There's a lot of illness out there. You know, we've got medications and we've got this capacity to allow, you know, which supports people and allows people to live longer with their diseases. But are they living well?
Yes.
No, you know, no, they're not. They're living with diabetes for 20 years, losing their vision, losing a kidney, losing the feeling in their toes. Then they get an infection in their toe. They have to get their toe amputated. And so they're spending more time in hospital, more time sick. And is that okay? And how frustrating is it to care for that all the time? You know, when the patients don't, you know, their health literacy isn't strong enough to understand it. You know, we as healthcare workers don't have the time to sit with them and explain at their level everything they do need to know to operate the user manual that their body needs. You know, the user manual that we should be explaining to patients is quite complex, but we don't have the time to break it down, you know. So it is really hard. And then to understand, well, how does the patient want to live their life? You know, sometimes when patients come into hospital, they might not want all the treatment we're offering, but do we ask them if they want it? No, we just assume they do because they turned up through the door and there was an implied consent, you know.
Yes, not the time to have those conversations. Yeah, that's it. It's like, here, let's do this, and it's on to the next patient. And yeah, it's a bit of a churn. And I think what helps me in that situation is to just accept that, okay, so I'm one person, I've got all these patients with these complex needs, and when all the emergencies start coming through the door and we need to shuffle, then those 3 patients could change over in the next couple of hours. So I've actually had like 8 or 9 patients through those same beds. And it's like, wait a minute, where do they go?
Yeah.
Because we're having to move people to where they're most appropriate to be cared for. So it's like, I'm one person, I can do this much in this day, in this time, and breathe. I check in, and then I take time for the time that I'm with each of my patients, just to be present with them, have a conversation while I'm giving their IV medication or whatever it is, and then it's on to the next thing. And that makes me feel good, because I feel like I'm getting that connection, and I see the meaning that it has for my patients. And I have to accept that I can't do everything that's on the list.
I was just thinking about, paying attention to everything that you were saying. And it seems to me that, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you want to do things the way you know they should be done. So you want to do the right thing, but you find yourself in a position where you can't, because the health system is so complex that there are many things that don't depend on what you are doing. It depends on other people. And also, you don't have the time or the resources to do things the right way. And that is causing you.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking that's very related to other concept called moral injury.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that perhaps we could explore more as well, because that's something that happens to us very
that crossing of values.
Yeah, and we don't know about it. Yeah.
Like this is what I became a nurse for, and that's what I hold to. That's the thing that keeps you going on the bad days, is thinking, no, but this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. And then those lines get blurred, and you have to do stuff that's not aligned with that purpose. And it's like, well, wait a minute, hang on, like I'm losing sight of it.
Yeah. Also, for the people who are listening and watching the YouTube video, I just wanted to tell you that if you are feeling that you relate to the things that we are talking about, please comment below, and we would love to hear from your experience and have this connection and see whether the things that we are talking about are useful to you. And so please comment below. Also, you can share this video, this podcast, and you can like it if you like the content.
Thanks, Isabel. And I think it's really important that, we can have this feeling and we can notice this in ourselves, but also noticing it in our colleagues and noticing the impact that it has on our colleagues, and checking in with our colleagues and asking if they're okay, if we're noticing that they're really flat and they're not enjoying their work and they're feeling really frustrated. It's really important as a community of healthcare workforce that we really look out for each other too, and we sort of say, are you okay? And if we're really stuck, knowing that within our organizations there's employee assistance programs with really some top ends, like counselors who we can go and talk to, just to sort of try and make sense out of our heads sometimes too, because sometimes we've got all these feelings but we don't know which direction they're going in. So just to have that impartial third person who will just sit there and listen, as Isabel was saying before, just sit there and listen to us and go, yeah, you got a hard lot at the moment. Yeah, come back and talk to us, next week. Everybody who works in healthcare has that sort of 3 free sessions yearly that we're not tapping into or probably using enough either, because we keep soldiering on for some, for some sense of doing what we do. But solutions, ladies, what have you done? I mean, Isabel's done many things to find her comfort and her compassion satisfaction, to be sort of, proud of her, what she's doing in her work. And so Celeste, what do you do to sort of add to that? I mean, Isabel's going to talk more about her solutions too, but Celeste, what do you do for your solutions to look after yourself too?
So for me, mindful awareness has been the biggest help. It's because, you can't change anything you're not aware of. So by finding a way that I could just be present with myself. So it can be like setting an alarm on my phone there for a while has been really useful, because it's just, okay, yep, alarm's got off, time out, just take a minute, 30 seconds, just check in with myself. How do I feel physically? How fast is my heart going? You know, is my brain all over the place? Because then I can just center myself and think, okay, what's next? And go forward from there. And I'm aware of how I'm feeling, so that I can take steps to just soothe myself if I need that, or, you know, whatever's going on. But I feel like it's very helpful for managing strong emotions and regulating self. And I can choose how I respond going forward. And if you can create that little space between the stimulus and the response, there's actually quite a big space there, and there's always more than one option. Don't have to just react according to how your emotions are dictating at the time. It's like, okay, so I'm feeling a bit anxious about this at the moment, but hey, like, what else is going on? And well, actually, there's always silver linings. There's always things to be grateful for and appreciate in the situation. And when you can tune into that, or when I could tune into that, it's when I really feel more in control of the situation and happy going forward. And it doesn't seem to be such a rat race. I can literally step off the hamster wheel for a few moments. The other thing is identifying expectations, because sometimes expectations are, you know, what we perceive, and sometimes they are more overt. So, you know, it's tuning into, like, what's my inner voice saying? Am I perceiving these expectations, or are they real? Like, so that can kind of put things in perspective, and it can release the pressure off ourselves as well, because sometimes we're reacting to a perceived expectation that's actually not there at all, if we take the time to ask a question of a colleague we trust, or whoever's around at the time.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying there, Celeste, is really important, is that, but you had to get awareness
Yes.
that you had this fatigue first of all.
Yes.
So that's, I really liked when you said that at the beginning, because it is really important that we do that, and we know, oh, I've got a trigger at the moment, I'm feeling triggered, I've got my fast heart rate and I'm feeling a bit unsure. I'm just going to take a few minutes out now, and I'm going to just breathe, center myself, and come back, because I don't want to react and have a negative outcome that I have to repair.
That's it. And
awesome.
And it's that sensing the overwhelm, because sometimes there's just so much coming at you in a short space of time that it can be so overwhelming for your senses and for your brain. And then you've got to be able to make decisions and you know, and be present, checking medications, doing all those those important tasks that are detail focused. If you've got to be able to find a way to manage that overwhelm and get centered again. So, so that is so helpful. And boundary setting is also really helpful. So particularly in the dimension of self-care, because boundaries can really help us to, you know, rather than saying no to something, like, say, I have a colleague the other day who'd just done 4 hours of overtime on her 8-hour shift for the 4th shift in a row. And she was just so exhausted and only had like one day off, and then she was coming back to work again. And, you know, I could really relate to that. And it's an example of, because we can see all these empty shifts on the roster, and you feel for your colleagues who are, you know, they're going to be bearing the brunt of those gaps in the roster, and you want to help, so you do whatever you can. But at some point you need to be able to give to yourself, so that you can keep turning up next week and not be, you know, have this gradual compassion fatigue set in around you, where you come to work one day and you think, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yes.
You know, that's not a good feeling, and it'll sneak up. It sneaks up on us because we're so focused on helping our team. And then we can also risk forgetting about our team at home as well as ourselves. And so it's getting that balance. If we can set the boundary that, okay, I'm actually not going to do 4 hours overtime today. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. Or if it's in the afternoon, I'm getting home at 3:30 or 4 o'clock. I'm going to go for a walk with the kids to the park, and take that time for our team at home and ourselves, because that's what fills our cup. And then we're able to come back for the next shift, and we keep our longevity. That's
exactly. Oh, thanks, Celeste. That's awesome. That's great. And Isabel, like, what else do you do to, you know, keep nurturing yourself?
One of the things that I do, I try to look for options. I try to look for the things that I'm passionate about, and, you know, taking small steps and start doing things that I like. For example, one of the things that I'm doing now that is helping me is this podcast, because in here I get to, you know, share my story with you, with you too, and also to share my story with other people, because that helps me to feel like everything that I've gone through and all my life experience and my experience in nursing and with everything I've done, I can, you know, help other people. And that to me gives meaning to whatever, you know, I've been through. And so that's one of the things that I do. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want to share my story, and I want to you know, help other people that are, you know, that are younger than me, that are, I don't know, that perhaps are in their 20s or 30s, that are just starting and they have no idea what they got themselves into, right? And yes, just to share this life experience, I know that it's useful, because if I look, you know, in my own life, I wish I had a mentor or someone who could share these things. And so when I was starting to feel that I wasn't feeling anything, I sort of, you know, if I had someone, you know, who would have told me, I perhaps would have done different things to look after myself back then. And like perhaps taking, you know, up some kind of sport that I didn't do back then. But now that I'm, you know, wiser and older, I do that, and I do that, and that's part of my life as well. So for example, a way for me to, as I mentioned before, to regulate my emotions is to be present in the sport that I practice. And that, you know, an hour and a half that I do most days is just a time for me to not think about anything and just be present in the moment and practice mindfulness as well. And, you know, I'm thinking about the muscle that is here and, you know, how it's working, and trying to make that muscle mind connection. And, you know, and just being present and looking after myself. That's another thing that's helping me a lot. Another area that I'm, you know, consciously and putting a lot of effort in developing is my relationships. Because I'm the kind of person, and not everybody is the same. You know, for other people, different things work better. But for me, I'm someone that needs deep connection with people. I'm someone that I love having friends, good quality friends, people that I can, you know, just be myself around. And those are, you know, family members, my kids, my husband. But I have good quality friends, and I put a lot of effort into being there, you know, when they need me. So, you know, they can also be there for me. And that is something that I really appreciate, and put, you know, put time, invest my time, because that's something that helps me. And so those are some of the things. And, you know, trying to look into the future and think about how I want my life to be. What are the things that so I put, again, you know, time and effort thinking of what is it that I want to achieve in many different areas of my life, and make conscious effort to get there.
Well, thank you, Isabel. That's great. And I think that is that thing of, you know, that visioning, and, you know, how do I want to be seen? And, you know, and holding yourself to account about how you want to be seen. And so the things that you need to do to keep yourself sort of at that focus where you feel that you have control and you are living your life on your terms, you know, that self-agency that we sort of are looking for in ourselves, which is really important. So, and I know there is 10 million more solutions, and I know that there is everybody has their own version of solutions because we're all unique human beings who have things that work for us individually. And that's why, what Isabel was saying earlier about, giving us in the comments below today, and through our Facebook page and everything else, giving us that feedback, because we're going to come back to this topic and talk about compassion fatigue solutions in a future podcast as well, because we want to keep talking about this, because this creates awareness. Awareness creates change. So this is what we're trying to do. So is anything else? Sorry, go.
Yeah, just wanted to add that, and casting no aspersions on the wonderful services that employers offer to help their employees with mental well-being. However, sometimes people don't trust those, and there are other options out there. So the Black Dog Institute offers counselling and an actual short course on compassion fatigue, and they are completely independent of any registration body or organisation, and it's all confidential. So that's a really great support service that's out there. So I just thought I'd give them a plug.
And there's also your local coaches as well that you might know as well. They're pretty good too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just to finish, unless you guys want to say something else.
No.
Okay, so for you guys that are listening and watching this video on YouTube, we would love to hear from you. It would be great if you can, reach out, and we would be more than happy to, listen to your story and see. And sometimes, if you want to even speak into, and collaborate with us in this podcast, we will be more than happy to have a chat and learn about you and your experience. So, and if you like this video and podcast, please give it a like and share and comment below. In the description below, we will put some of the links to the resources we spoke about. And so make sure that you read the description below and reach out to us if you feel like connecting.